I've got Scott doing video, and I appreciate it, Scott, so much, and Kath for doing sound, and then Charlene. It is best to be able to participate, but we will be sending out a video so people can watch, so they can be a part of the process in that way. So this is 6 months of adaptive change. I think turn me head down just a little bit, because at least I have feedback from where I'm standing. Okay, is that okay? Can you hear me still? Because I was getting it in my ear. All right. So we'll meet for 6 months, the second Sunday of each month. Now, most of our meetings will be after worship. This is at 3 o'clock for an odd reason. When we originally did this, we were going to be meeting with a consultant, all 3 churches. She was going to zoom in, and then all 3 churches were going to be in their separate places, and then we'd have her up on the screen, and that's when she could schedule. Well, the 3 of the pastors from the UCC Church and First Presbyterian, as we got into it more, we altered it for ourselves. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago. We thought, it'd be cheaper not to have her, and we can do it without her. But then I had already started advertising it for 3 o'clock, and I didn't want to confuse everyone, so here we are. The following week, so it will be after church. Linda Jacobs and I talked about, possibly having soup afterward, just a light lunch, if people weren't hungry to get moving. And if you'd like to be one of those people to make soup, to sign up to make soup for one of those weeks, just let me or Linda know, and we'll do that. It won't be a full meal, just to keep us going until it's time to go home. So if we started at 11:45, an hour and a half later. This is for 90 minutes. All right? I want to begin looking at a passage, so we'll go to the next slide. I want to begin with a passage from the Gospel of Matthew. Right then, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead to the other side of the lake while he dismissed the crowds. When he sent them away, he went up onto a mountain by himself to pray. Evening came and he was alone. Meanwhile, the boat, fighting a strong headwind, was being battered by the waves and was already far away from land. Very early in the morning, he came to his disciples walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified and said, "It's a ghost." They were so frightened, they screamed. Just then Jesus spoke to them, Be encouraged. It's me. Don't be afraid." Peter replied, "Lord, if it is you, order me to come out to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come." And Peter got out of the boat and was walking on the water toward Jesus. But when Peter saw the strong wind, he became frightened. As he began to sink, he shouted, "Lord, rescue me." Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him, saying, "You man of weak faith, why did you begin to have doubts?" When they got back into the boat, the wind had settled down. Then those in the boat worshipped Jesus and said, "You must be God's son." Through Christendom, the image of a boat was the church. And in many churches, the ceiling in the sanctuary is the hull of the boat. If you look up, you're reminded of the hull of the boat. Now, I don't know if this church is so much that way, but it's a common design in sanctuaries. And we can think of the passage in that way, in that these disciples in the boat are in the security of the church until the winds start tossing them around. And instead of Jesus saying, "Oh, just hold tight to the boat, just stay there," what does Jesus do? He invites Peter, one of the disciples, to come out into the water and to be there for him, and to do something that, well, it seems pretty impossible to walk on water. I think this is a good analogy for us now, because we live in a world that's topsy-turvy, and here we are in our boat. And even though the world can be dangerous and stormy, and we don't know what's going to happen next, we have big challenges ahead of us, Jesus is still calling us out, but not calling us out alone. He's saying the Holy Spirit is there with you, not just in the church, but calling you out into the rough seas, and calling you to come to me, and to hold on to that faith. And we'll sink, we'll struggle, but then that doesn't mean we don't get out of the boat again. We try again. And that's a lot of what adaptive change is. is trying different things. Sometimes we sink, sometimes we float. But we are always called to a mission, to go outside of the boat, outside the church. We churches have to have a mission to go beyond the boat, beyond the sanctuary. Amen?
Amen.
Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. Now, for today, the two things that we're going to do is we're going to play a game it's kind of a game, called Animal Farm. That'll be near the end of the process when I've explained what we're doing. And then during the session, we're going to assess our current context of society. Next month in November, I'll come with the stats of the church over the last 10 years. Finances, membership, giving, budget, all of that, and show the trend of the church for the 10 years. But for now, for this week, we're going to look at trends of America, the United States, of society, and how we fit into that. So those are two of the things we'll be doing. Okay, next slide. So you all know what I mean when I say Christendom. Is there anybody here, don't be embarrassed if you don't, you know what Christendom is? Christendom is when society the authority over society was the church. The church had huge influence over society. And I would say all of us here are of an age when we actually lived in Christendom. And what I'm going to talk about for a few moments is how Christendom is no more and why the church, we all know, needs to adapt. Now, we're going to get some sad news here, some tough news, but it's not all tough news. You kind of lay it out and you work yourself out from there. So Christendom, next slide, is a culture primarily influenced by Christianity. Okay, next slide. So, I don't know about Oregon, but I know in North Carolina, where I didn't grow up, but also in parts of Massachusetts, did you say a prayer or have a devotion in school?
Yeah.
No, some of you didn't. Maybe in California you didn't. But church, excuse me?
Washington State we did.
In Washington State you did. But the church was still very much more a part of society, had a huge influence. Next slide. I know, now I'm in a different culture than here in Charlotte, but when you move to some of our cities, like Charlotte, where I raised my children, and in Asheville, one of the first questions people ask you is what, when you move into town? What church do you go to? That wasn't part of conversation when people get together. What church do you go to? Folks, if you're not in church circles these days, or you're out and about beyond church people, they don't ask that question anymore. It's not assumed anymore. Do you assume that your neighbors go to church?
Mm-hmm.
Sue, you do assume your neighbors go to church?
No, I assume that they don't.
You assume that they don't? Okay, all right. Okay, I thought you were shaking your head, and I want to know more about your neighborhood. Because that's one of the things that also we're going to do is we're going to look closely at our surroundings here. Okay, next slide. So sorry, it's Sunday. In Massachusetts, there were the blue laws. Did they have those in the Northwest and Oregon when you were younger? Blue laws. You know what the blue laws are? Everything's closed on Sunday.
Yeah.
The big shift came for me. I had a couple churches in Charlotte. It's a city of 1.2 million at that time. And it was a YMCA, the Young Methodist Christian Association. Is that what it stands for?
Yeah.
What? Is that what is that right? Yeah, so they began doing soccer games on Sunday. So the clergy in that zip code in the area, we approached the Y about that. They stopped it, but 2 years later, they started again. We lost that one. Okay, next slide. Most weddings that I do are no longer in sanctuaries because young people don't identify in sanctuaries. Most weddings are done outside the sanctuary. Also with young people, when I tell people in the Northwest, because I've met a lot of people through friends, that I'm a United Methodist minister, this is really accurate. 80% of the time, they don't really know what I am. If you are under 40, now I'm well over 40, but if you are under 40, there's a very good chance. If I say I'm a United Methodist pastor, they'll say to me, even if they're older, now, what is that? They're just not sure. Because we're only a small percentage now of the population. It's a secular world. If I were to say I was a Presbyterian minister or pastor, it would be the same thing. Okay, next slide. So, where are weddings? Well, they're outdoors. Okay, next slide. Funerals. Funerals, yeah, not so often inside a sanctuary. Not so much in the church. Next slide. They're outdoors. Or they're somewhere else. But maybe sometime in a civic hall. Next slide. Oh. We'll come back on.
That's the blue law.
That's the blue law. So what are people, what do people, I mean, we are a minority, right? Wouldn't you admit that, say that? What are people doing on Sunday mornings now? What are they doing?
Reading the Sunday paper.
They're reading the Sunday paper. What else are they doing?
Play golf.
They're playing golf. What else? Ball games, sports,
Doing the laundry.
doing the laundry. I know my son, I'm going to admit, here I am a pastor, my daughter goes to church. Her husband is also an Episcopal minister. My son doesn't go to church, and I've really questioned him on it. Well, Alex, he said, well, you know, Dad, we both work full time, and that's our time together. I said, well, you can be together in church, but he's not considering that right now. But, you know where your kids are. Where are they? Well, just ask me or ask where your kids are, right? I've got one that goes, one that doesn't. Yeah. So, or they take the pup to the dog park, right? Look at the week ahead of the kids.
Football games.
What?
Football.
Football team.
Oh, Charlotte, I'm so glad you brought that up, because when I was a minister in Charlotte at Dilworth, the Panther Stadium was an eyesight of the church. We were in the banking district, right downtown, and then just outside of town, we could see it was a big dome of the Panther Stadium, NFL. On football games, attendance dropped. And we were close enough that people would want to park in our limited parking, so I made the agreement with them. And it kind of ruffled some feathers. You can park here, you can go to the early service, but you have to attend church here first. And some people said, well, we're members here. I said, doesn't matter. You need to attend church first. And what are you going to do about it? I said, I can't do anything about it, but it's a trust thing. But we had to really look at that Panther Stadium, Panther football game schedule, and we then had to begin working around them. And we were going to have big gatherings on Sunday. We didn't do it Panther Day because we were putting ourselves in a loss. Okay, next slide. So here's the sad news of the church. And that's not all sad news, folks, all right? Here's the sad news the church faces today. Next slide. I have had a few experiences being a pastor, and maybe James has too, where people have been aggressive toward me, kind of angry. They've had a bad experience in church. I've had that here. I had that a little bit in the South. But for most people, we still matter. I don't know if there's a lot of negative feeling toward us or not. I don't think we matter, right? Next slide. I don't think people hate the church. There's a few. Next slide. They just don't think about us. We're not a part of the culture. We're not deep within the culture anymore. I don't know if most people know the Christian story. When I meet people, they ask me crazy questions. And I think it's because they're feeling guilty about not going to church because they went to church when they were little. But, I know something I don't think about. So next slide. The sad thing is, you need to do the children. If you have grandchildren, do they know the Christian story? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. You'd have to answer that for yourselves. Okay? Why bother? All right, next slide. Okay, so what does this mean for us? Let's see if I can read this. It means, is there maybe a loose connection?
I've just tried everything. It's all tight.
When it comes to getting new members, we have a much smaller pool to draw from, right? When people are not automatically predisposed to attend a church service, in fact, it's not that many people are not predisposed to attend a church service. In fact, they are predisposed to not attend. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
People will no longer just walk through our doors. We'll leave it there. We'll go to that next, okay? As we go, we may not be able to gain enough members to take their place, meaning we will grow older and smaller. I know that James would know her name. Phyllis Tickle. This is a famous quote from Phyllis Tickle. She wrote this book not long before she died. She was a great. Does a lot of publishing of Christian books, and just had a good understanding of Christianity and history. Hegemony means the dominant force in society. Am I saying that word correctly? Hegemony. It means the dominant force in your society, the authority. That's what that word means when I read it. About every 500 years or so, this is church history, the church has a giant rummage sale. And we're on one of those episodes now. We're seeing the start of a post-Protestant, post-denominational era. Just as Protestantism broke the hegemony of the Roman Catholicism, and Roman Catholicism, that of the East, at the Great Schism. So, the emerging church of today is taking the hegemony from the traditional forms. We're building the next model for church, which in 500 years will be thrown away again. People who were in the Protestant Reformation, they didn't know they were in the Protestant Reformation until historians later said it was a Protestant Reformation. But I think our society, especially the Western world, is going through one of those periods now. Next slide. So we have different groups that we're going to talk about that were signs of this rummage sale. Religion in America. The nuns, you know what the nuns would be, N-O-N-E-S, not N-U-N-S. They're not anything. Do you know people who are nuns? They're just not affiliated to anything, right? And they know a little bit of the story, but of the Christian story or the Jewish story, but not really, they just don't have an interest. Or the duns, people that are just done with church, right? And then, of course, among millennial, growth of the non-joiners. How long does it take for a millennial to join a church? Well, longer than it does for them to have a baby. It takes a long time, right? It takes more than 9 months. The rise of the tribes in our society. We identify ourselves by tribes. When you were young, when I was really young, when my mother was young, it was a huge thing to go a Catholic to marry a Protestant, or a Protestant to marry a Jewish person. Or it was even big when I was in high school for a black person to marry a white person, or a white person to marry a Hispanic person, or a black person. You can cross lines. Now in society, the bigger question is tribes. Tribes are people who identify by who is out, not just who is in. So it's a little more aggressive. What are our tribes? Democrat, Republican. More families are set now if a Republican in a family, the daughter marries a strong Democrat than if one was Protestant and one was Catholic. Would you agree with me with that? That's how we identify ourselves now, by tribes. What are some other tribes that we see? Well, I think the LGBT group, Q, is a tribe. I am part of that tribe. When I get together with William, we get together with other gay people, and it's a tribe. I am the only pastor there. Believe me, they don't know what I'm doing. And I spend a lot of time talking to them about that. That actually, in the Northwest, has become part of my outreach, just by being who I am. But that is a definite tribe. What are some other tribes?
I think always in the past we thought of the sub-dominant tribes, but white people.
White people. Right. And wouldn't you, I have to be very careful, wouldn't you say that maybe the right evangelical is more of a tribe now than a denomination?
Yes.
It's a tribe because identified by not only by who you are, but who you are not.
What's the difference between a tribe and a cult?
Well, I don't know if a tribe is necessarily going to lead everybody to kill themselves. I think of a cult as something that's really very dangerous, that has a leader that's going to cause people to drink the grape juice.
Yeah.
Not to drink the juice. What would you say, James?
Center of control.
Yeah.
Center of control.
So a strong cult presence has a centered leadership that is controlling where people go.
Okay.
Whereas tribe has
an identity of sorts. Okay. All right. Christianity, the brand. News last week, Roman Catholic Church in France. Did you catch that news?
Yeah.
Now, for people outside the church, folks, we are in a pool together, the Christian brand. People do look at me and sometimes at you and think, oh, geez, those churches, man, there's a lot of abuse going on. Right? But it's hit all. It's hit the scouts, it's hit schools, but it's particularly hit the church, but particularly the Catholic Church, but they are Christians, right? 32 churches close in America every day. And that's Sunday-centric syndrome. I didn't do this on a Wednesday night where in the 1980s I could have done this on a Wednesday night and people would have come. I knew I had to do these programs on a Sunday. That's the only day I had. Yeah. Okay. All right. So next slide. So you have the church, and then around that you have the duns and the nuns. Next slide. So we're going to look at a graph for a moment. You know these terms, Gen Z, born between 1999 and 2015. Millennials, born between 1984 and 1998, which would be my kids. Gen X, born between 1965 and 1983, and I'm right on the edge of that. Boomers, born between 1946 and 1964, and then the elders, 1946. I just wanted to identify them for the next graph. And this is Pew Research has found this. This is from 2020. Pew Research would be, the gold standard for surveys of faith and religion in America. Okay, next slide.
No, it doesn't. Nothing is there.
Oh, there we go. Great. Okay, so there's a little bit of good news here. You're going to come as a surprise here. White evangelicals. Don't let it fool you. Okay, you see that aqua blue? The aqua blue is white, mainline, non-evangelical Protestant. That's us. Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist, Episcopalian. We are on a steady decline, but look what's happened to us. And that actually came out, if you watch, now I listen to NPR and shows you where I am at, and I mostly watch PBS, they had a big program on that we are actually, in the last 4 years, have shown an increase. Now you wouldn't know it, but we actually have shown an increase. Now, I kind of read the back reading from the Pew study. They, of course, don't know if that will continue, or if that's a blip, and that is mostly among boomers. I think it's because they're getting older as they come back to church. But there's a slight increase. And then Catholicism went up mostly not because of white folks, but went up because of the Hispanic population. But that in the last 2 years has been in decline. Okay, next slide. We'll never change the world by going to church. We only change the world by being the church. By being the body of Christ in the world. Getting out of the boat. Okay, next slide. So church is seen as a dispenser. Since I've been a minister, things have really shifted. The church is seen as a dispenser of religious goods and services. People come to church to be fed, to have their needs met through quality programs, and to have the professionals teach their children about God. This is the first church I've had since after my first appointment where I did not have a Christian educator. I think Christian educators are really, really, really important. But in my last church, there were 4 clergy. It was very, very expensive. It was a clergy for youth. It was a clergy for children. It was a clergy for adults. And then an associate to help me in worship, and then did older adults. And I was like the administrator. And there was a professional that served each of those age groups. And we were there if you needed us. It was very professionally driven. We were all ordained. We all had been to seminary. We were the big church. But it won't last forever, because that church is beginning to struggle financially as well. It's too expensive. A missional church is a body of people sent on a mission who gather in community for worship, community encouragement, and teaching from the Word, in addition to what they are self-feeding themselves throughout the week. I've begun to think that it's no longer, as it was pre-World War I, the responsibility of the clergy to teach Sunday school. When you were younger, you're 90, when you were younger, who took care of the children in worship?
who took care of the nursery? Who taught Sunday school? Who organized Sunday school?
People in the church.
May have been a minister, could have been a volunteer. Yeah. I think the future of the church really means that the membership has to claim the church. And they have to do it within the energy level they have and the resources they have. You can't do everything. But you can't hire everybody to do it either. Right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of churches left with associates.
50 years ago, you had generally one wage earner, and the other one was free to do volunteer work at the time.
And Mary, I think that's a really, really good point. Now, really, to afford a mortgage for most families, or rent, they both have to work. Yeah, and that's a giver. And then you have older folks. I mean, you do age out of that stuff, like taking care of the nursery. I mean, I can't imagine being 80 and taking care of the nursery. I wouldn't be afraid I'd drop the baby. I mean, you're just not as strong as you once were, right? Huh?
They wiggle.
They wiggle, right? Okay, but you have to become more missional. James, do you have anything to add to all this? Because I like your insights.
I know you did great.
Okay. All right, go on to the next one. Okay, so who wants change? Or who wants to change? My feeling is that we aren't afraid of change, we're afraid of loss. We're afraid of things being taken from us. We are mostly okay with change, because life has changed, but we are really afraid of loss. Or we're afraid of somebody taking something from us in change that is sacred and important to us. Would you agree with me with that? That's the real fear of being out of control, of somebody taking things, or that loss. Okay, next slide. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. You know, the churches we have now was not the church of, of ancient times. It's just how we've made, and how the question that we have to struggle with for the next 6 months is, how do we adapt while keeping those most sacred things of who we are still a part of who we are? And that question comes from the congregation. That's why I really was pushing and kind of talking until you got tired of me hearing it to get people here today, because that answer doesn't come from me. I guide us through. I don't have the answers for that. That has to come from the body. Okay, next slide. Technical challenges are problems we have answers to. Adaptive challenges are problems we have no idea how to solve. When faced with technical change, best practices are your friends. When faced with adaptive change, best practices are your nemesis. A technical challenge. I'm going to use one that's a bit political. When the virus came, Trump actually really did pretty good in that area. I don't know where you are. I imagine most people in this country, we have a few Republicans, but he did pretty good. But listen, folks, he invested in pharma. He gave them the money they needed. That administration gave them the money they needed to invest in that vaccine. Now, I'm not talking about all the stuff that swirled around it, but that's one reason he knew that was a technical challenge. How to finance those, that pharma, to give them that safety net, give them the money to get them.
He knew, though, that the best way to that was providing money.
Yes, he provided that money. And then Biden also did a technical challenge and change. He set up the centers around the country and, did that whole network, that feeder, to get those vaccines out to this massive country. That was a technical thing. The adaptive challenge is one that's much harder. How do you deal with people who won't take the vaccine, even though the vaccine has now been developed ahead of schedule and it's available at your local pharmacies and hospitals and church parking lot? How do you get them to take that? That's an adaptive change. There's really no rule book for it. You just got to figure it out as you go along. A technical challenge. I broke my leg a few years ago, tibia and fibula. That was a technical challenge for that surgeon, piecing that back together. Now, if I lost my leg, that would be an adaptive challenge. I would have to learn through a prosthesis or through something. Nothing's perfect, but it would be trial and error that they would have to work with me of how to walk with only one leg. And that would be trial and error. There's no precise movement on that. Whereas a surgeon knew exactly what he needed to do to stitch those two bones back together. Adaptive is different. There's no real clear way. And the worst thing you can do, and I've had people do this to me, we have an adaptive challenge, and they want from me, or they bring to me 1, 2, and 3 steps. I call it Betty Crocker evangelism. You take this part of the recipe, you take this, you pop it in an oven, and out comes your cake. It doesn't work that way sometimes. Okay, next one. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's part of this. In figuring out adaptive change, we figure out who we are and where we are, and that's what we're going to do for the 6 months. And I hope you can invite your church family to come, because we really need a quorum to do that. So it's not a small group doing it. In this process, we really need the congregation, a cultural thing. I had a congregation outside of Asheville. We have blue glass rain. I had an upper class church there, and they had a beautiful pipe organ. Once a month, they had a guy who was a member of the church who was a recording kind of star with a banjo, and his band came, and they played bluegrass on Sunday morning. We had a beautiful organ. We really paid for that choir director. But that was not the culture of Hominy Valley. When we had that bluegrass guy come once a month to play on his banjo, no overheads, nothing, to play on that banjo, we packed the house. I don't like bluegrass music, but they did, because that was their culture. That's what connected them to God, not the organ. We could have all the strategy we wanted, but in that particular culture of Hominy Valley, outside of Asheville, where they filmed, the Dooley banjo thing. What was the name of that movie?
Yes.
It was bluegrass. It was not the organ.
Yeah.
That was their culture. That's what connected them to God. And as we adapt, we figure out what connects us to God, what connects our community to God. You guys get that? Right. Okay, next one. So you gotta recalculate. Next one. You gotta keep recalculating and have to change and figuring out which way to go. And of course, leaders are saying, knock it off. Okay, this is the book that I'm inviting people to read. Adaptive Change. Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark, what was the river that came out of the Mississippi that they went up to Montana in?
Missouri River.
Missouri River. So, right. It was believed by explorers before the first white people hit that area of the north, before they got to the northwest, the Rocky Mountain Range, they thought there was going to be a river from the Missouri River that then they may have to go over a little bit of land, but that from there would just go east to west and bring them right through to the coast. Never had been there before. What happened? They climbed those first mountains, and what took place? They saw mountains they had never seen before. It wasn't like the mountains of Virginia. I mean, the mountains of Virginia are tiny compared to that. And those mountains, you've seen them, you all live in the West, go on and on and on. So you know what they had to do? The first thing they had to do?
Ditch the canoe.
They had to ditch the canoes. Then they had to make friends with Native Americans, because they needed horses, because the canoes were no good. They had to adapt. All right, next slide. So I thought it'd be fun to also compare to the Wizard of Oz. She's going down this road. She's trying to get away from the Wicked Witch of the West, and she's going to Oz, has never seen it, and she has to keep adapting. Luckily, along the way, she's following this road, doesn't really know where it's going. She makes friends with the Tin Man, Scarecrow, and
The lion.
And of course, they're afraid of
The witch.
lions, tigers, and bears, right? But they don't know where they're going. They just know they need to go on this road, but they don't have any idea where they're going. Okay, next slide. So yeah, they're afraid. They've got some struggle ahead. They have to step out of the boat and go into the rough seas. Next slide. Lions and tigers and bears. Okay, the Animal Farm. This is a game we're going to play. And we do pass out that sheet. Now, I'm going to show you an animal, and you're going to write down what I ask, And then we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to get back to it. This Animal Farm is kind of going to set the agenda for us for the next 5 months. So we're not going to get into depth on this. This is going to help us figure out what's sacred to us, what needs to die maybe, and what lessons we have learned from the past. But when you call these out, we're not going to get involved in that, but we're going to keep it because those are the things we're going to tackle. Okay? So, everybody gets one. It's a game of truth telling. All right? Game of truth telling.
Hey, Ben,
Yes?
when you talked about them going along, having no idea what they were getting into,
Yeah.
made me think it's kind of like
Cool.
Christianity, because they ask us to participate, to join it, to believe with all our heart.
But you really have no idea what you're getting into.
It's about
It's a faith thing. Faith statement.
It's kind of like, I still don't.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right, while you're passing around, let's go to the next. Let's go to the first animal. Next slide. A peacock. On that side, I want you to write down, take a moment, what about your church makes you proud as a peacock? All right, it's really important. What makes you proud as a peacock? Because guess what? If you don't love yourself, ain't nobody gonna love you, right? God will love yourself. What makes you proud as a peacock to be a part of this church? If you're newer, well, just take a stab at it. What makes you proud as a peacock? There are things, but I'm not going to answer that make me proud, very proud about this church. But this is an answer. This is something for you to answer. What makes you proud to be part of this church? And just raise your hand when you've written down a few things so I know to go on to the next animal. Okay, thank you. All right. What makes you proud as a peacock? Oh, we need to move. What time? 3 to 4:30. Okay, we've got time. I want to really keep my time frame for you. Okay, you ready to go to the next one?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to the next one. Now, I don't mean sacred cow in a negative way. I mean this in a positive way. What do we treat that, what do we do, what do we treat as that which cannot be messed with in our church? There are things that every congregation has that connects them to God that you shouldn't mess with. It's sacred. And I'm not talking necessarily about, the vase you have on your altar table. I'm not talking about physical stuff. That's a really hard question. I would think that you would be answering this. I hadn't thought about that when I was doing this. I would think about, as a church, as a people. And I don't want you to disagree. It's something that you agree with. You have to be a part of that too. You think this is sacred. This is I don't necessarily want that. I want that what you think is sacred in this church that shouldn't be messed with, that you think others would think the same thing. I'm not asking this in a what?
Not in judgmental.
I'm not asking this in the judgmental or divisive way. I'm asking this in a good way. What's holy here? What do you do that you think is holy, sacred? I mean, it could be as simple as reading the Bible. I don't know. You have to. But what do you do that's sacred? What do you have that's sacred that you don't think should be messed with? That's sacred. Because I think it's okay to have those things. It's what makes a church. It's okay to have those things. It's part of an identity. We'll get to the other question about what we think needs to be gotten rid of. This is not that question. I mean, in my last congregation, I had there was a youth group that was very strong that had 50% of the people kids were from the community. That shouldn't have been messed with. That was very sacred to that church. And people were willing to put money into that. And they have kept it going for generations. I'm sorry. I said, in my last church, they had a youth group. It has been that way for 30, 40 years, a very strong youth program. They put a lot of money and resources into it and really did national searches for their youth director because that was sacred. That was a strength of that congregation. What is sacred here? And that could be something totally different, right? That might be a harder one for you. For some folks, it's easy. Are you ready to go on to the next one? You are?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next one. All right. What issues need to be acknowledged and discussed that we are afraid to tackle? We need to list those things. We're not going to go into those today, but over the next 6 months, we will. What are those things? What issues need to be acknowledged and discussed that we're afraid to tackle? What's the elephant? What are the elephants in the room? What are the elephants in the room? And we'll take a short break, then I'm going to have you share this, and we're going to put them up on this. I'm going to have somebody put them in notes, and then we're going to keep that, because that's important. These are important for us. You ready for the next one? Okay, next slide. What is extinct or needs to die in order for us to move forward? What needs to die? Doesn't necessarily need to be a program. It could be something from the past that we just need to bury so we can move on. What needs to be buried so that the congregation can move on post-pandemic? What maybe is something that's happened in the past where you need to just forgive and move on, or maybe it's a program you're doing or an activity that is not really reaching people anymore. It's just a hassle to be there. It's just not relevant. Anything like that. So the door is open on that. What is extinct or needs to die in order to move forward? Yeah.
Sorry to keep glad to do it.
That's okay.
It's really hard because it's almost like we aren't. Like we don't exist anymore hardly because we don't have the programs that we had. We don't, and
Actually, I thought about that when I put this up. I thought about that.
I mean, it's like, who are we now? Do we answer these based
Then
on...
don't put anything in there if you don't have anything. Just leave it empty. Yeah, just leave it empty. But I actually hear what you're saying.
I mean, we actually could be right in the middle of an opportunity because the sky's the limit. We aren't anymore, so what,
Yeah,
anything
we'll
we
get
do
to
is
that.
forward.
We'll get to that. Right. Okay, next slide. What distractions? Are there distractions that's keeping us from our task?
Mm-hmm.
Are there distractions that are keeping us from our task? Yeah, I thought of the same thing. And I don't know, it's not a distraction we can get rid of either.
I don't.
Hmm? It was a COVID.
Yeah.
It's a distraction.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, not all your distractions you can get rid of. I mean, sometimes your child is distracting you, but you can't get rid of your child. Mike, who has now been taking care of his grandson, is kind of disagreeing with that. That's a hard one too, I think. Cheryl, this next one's hard as well. Okay, what's next? You ready? Am I going too fast? Naming and embracing our epic failures. Okay, so how I want to describe this is what helps us move forward. Are there things, and I haven't been here that long, that's what you can answer. I think for the newer folks it would be hard to answer. Are there things you have done in the past where you can say, we shouldn't do that again? And what did we learn from that? because we can really learn from our past. I mean, right? Isn't that why you take history classes? So we learn from our past?
Yeah.
What have been the epic failures where we thought, no, we shouldn't have done that. That didn't work. I've had those through my life leading congregations. I look back and I think, you know what? That didn't work. What did I learn from that one? Yeah. What did I learn there? The First Presbyterian Murray was saying that they've already been through this week, and I've changed ours a little bit to adapt to ours. But they took in homeless people, and they really weren't prepared to do it, and they were drug dealing, and they said that was an epic failure. We did that wrong. Not again. They really learned from it.
Yeah, my church up in Paradise did that too. Yeah.
Some churches do it really well. Some churches do it very, very well. That particular congregation, they said we didn't do it well. We weren't. It wasn't. So they're trying to figure out what to do next. So, but it depends. You know, it all depends. I've seen churches just do things that it didn't work. It was a great idea, but it didn't work. What did you learn? Okay, next slide. And last, what new things are you hoping for, Cheryl? This is where you go. What new things are you hoping for post-pandemic in the church, in your church? Do you have hopes? What are your hopes? This isn't just about ends, but this is about hopes. What are your hopes? And I'll tell you, like life, they don't need to be grand. They just don't need to be huge. I've learned that. It's the little things, right? Sometimes it's the little things. What new things are you hoping for post-pandemic in your church? Okay, I think the next slide is a break, right? All right, we'll take a break. I wish I had coffee for you, but I don't drink coffee. I don't make it very well. I don't like coffee. Your acceptance of all people.
Community outreach.
Huh?
Community outreach.
Community outreach.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Friendliness of members.
Okay. Friendliness of members.
Diversity.
Diversity.
Fellowship.
United Methodist Women and our service.
Yeah.
Very good. UMW here. Right.
How about United Methodist Men also?
Well, I don't know. Would the men say that? I needed to hear from a man, not a woman. Huh?
Who does the talking?
Yeah.
As long as we're willing to acknowledge
They
them.
make the
I
pass.
thought you would acknowledge it. Okay.
Open to unity and like the road to music.
That's community outreach, isn't it?
Yeah, you can put Udite there.
One of my first thoughts was the stained glass windows.
Okay.
Because you say people don't want to have church weddings, but they do want weddings of beauty.
Okay.
Weddings of beauty. Some of them are in nature.
No, but she's talking about the windows.
Yeah, windows. Okay.
Camp Magala.
You support of Camp Lagala? Okay, support of Camp Lagala.
Did you have serving the homeless? Was that on?
I think that was on community outreach part.
Well, right now we have a food pantry, so you're putting that down.
How far back can we go? I'm
Present.
thinking of,
You're talking about the present.
Present.
What are you proud of Peacock now? I mean, what makes you proud? I mean, I guess you could talk about being proud of your past.
I was thinking of Feast of Carols and the music
Okay.
of that was.
Okay, Karen, what's up?
Say it out loud, Ben, so that people know.
I am. I'm repeating everything everybody's saying.
You didn't repeat that.
I was just about to, and then you spoke. I'm serious. I I was just about to. Care of one another. Yeah.
Can you read those that are?
Yeah, we can read them. Let me turn my mic back on. Acceptance. Hold on. Hold on. Community outreach, which would include unite, music, food pantry,
etc.
yeah, homeless service, friendliness, diversity, fellowship, UMM, UMW, windows, camp, legal, support, and care for one another. Okay, let's go. Are you ready to go to the next one? Okay, let's go to the next one. What do we treat as that which cannot be messed with in our church? What is sacred to you?
Community outreach.
Was that?
Community outreach.
Community outreach. Okay, community outreach.
Cindy, you want to label that one that you tore off so we'll know?
She did. She put proud on the top.
Okay, good.
And then she's put sacred on this one.
How about the rites, like baptism, communion?
Yeah.
Right. Very good, Cheryl.
What did you say?
She's talking about, she said the sacraments. Sacraments shouldn't be messed with. Communion, baptism, okay? So right, so sacraments, they're actually sacraments.
Communion? Yeah. Did that.
Communion, yeah. Sacraments in Methodist Church is communion and baptism.
Right.
Right, okay, very good. What do we treat as that which cannot be messed with in our church? What is sacred?
Music.
Music.
The layout of the sanctuary.
The layout of the sanctuary. You mean like the
I
pews?
mean, like, we did have an instance where we came into church one day and the altar had been moved and other things had been moved around and it was just not a good reason.
Okay.
People like the same
All
thing.
right. Just the sanctuary.
Gospel reading.
The gospel reading. Okay, the gospel reading. Right? The gospel reading. Yes?
I'm going to go a little bit along with what Kat was saying, and that a sanctuary is for worship and other parts of things. And what happens in a church is not a coffee stand.
Okay. All right.
It's not
A coffee place.
a,
Okay. Sanctuary. All right. Okay. Any others? What is sacred in our church? What is sacred?
That the pastor is the head of the church. Some churches, it's all these lay people that do it, and we have a pastor that's a leader. I think that shouldn't be.
You think? Yeah, I don't know if I want to be called sacred. I guess maybe the role. The
The role of the pastor.
Okay, the role of pastor. But I mean, the role of laity is sacred too, right? I mean, shoot, you don't want to all volunteer on me, that'd be dangerous.
Well, I think that the pastor, there's got to be somebody that's at the head of the
Center.
or something.
Okay.
Or
Center
stops.
things.
Where the box stops?
Yeah, and I think the laity that, like we used to do it, where we had I can't even remember what those committees were called, but, and you'd meet once a month or whatever, and it's nice, we had this person in charge of that group and blah, 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 but you need somebody that's pulling it all together, or who knows knows basically what's going on with each group.
Okay, the role of my role in the United Methodist Church is word, sacrament, and order. And that's what you're talking about. So you can put word, sacrament, and order.
What's it called?
Word, preaching, the sacraments, and the order of the church. The order, like keep everything in order. And it's word, sacrament, and order.
How about the care for the families with surgeries?
The who?
The care for families that their person's
Okay.
in the hospital, they
The
want to
care.
see and.
Is there a name? Is there an official name for that? That's sacred in the church. Care of one another. Care team. Is that called a care team, Charlotte? If you had such a team,
Yeah,
We did.
what do you have?
I think
Currently, this is current.
we're most into getting a word with our minister in the hospital or in the home of the
Okay, I think that's important too, but I'm gonna push back a little bit because I don't disagree with you, but it also is the care of one another,
Right.
not just my care of you, okay? I am gonna push back on that just a little bit. You have to care for one another. I'm part of that. In many ways, I lead to that, but you have to care for each other, and I think you do that.
I think.
I just don't want the sacred stuff to just be sitting around me. Yeah, what's that?
We don't exactly have it now, but children's programs,
Yes.
when we have children.
Yeah, okay. And that's something we need to talk about, so put that in there. Children.
We used to have a Stevens ministry, I thought, do you still have that?
Wait, we have two people talking. Just a minute, go ahead.
Doing things the way because that was the way we've always done it and are not that.
Okay, you're in the wrong category. I'm just gonna be real straight with you. That's coming. This is what's sacred. And maybe the cow word is wrong, but every church should have things that are sacred. Okay, so what are you saying then?
Refusing to adapt to change.
That doesn't sound like sacred. That sounds like.
But it was at one time. Anything that somebody wanted to change that.
But we're not talking about the past right now. I want to know what's sacred to you now. Okay.
What do we have at church that you absolutely don't want gotten rid of?
So you're saying, Bobby, that there were things in the past that people didn't want change, and you felt like they needed to have change.
Yes, and I said I didn't know for sure if it was going on now because I'm not been in the leadership thing. But
You're as much in the leadership right now as anybody else is.
Well,
You attend board
I
meetings.
wasn't sure if that should have been here or not, but I just not put it down because that's been at one time a real sacred thing. I don't know.
So you're saying that.
I'm hoping it's not.
Yeah, I don't really know what you're after, honestly.
I think that's an elephant.
So you're saying that things in the past, people. I can't really
That's the
repeat what you're
elephant.
saying, 'cause I don't get it.
That's the elephant in the room.
That's the elephant.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room.
I would say that'd be appropriate, yeah.
Folks, there are things in a church that are sacred, that should not be touched. For me, it's the gospel lesson. Reading the gospel. That for me is sacred. Okay? The sacrament of baptism and communion. That's sacred. That should not be touched. That's what I'm talking about. Everything that is sacred doesn't mean it's bad. It's not bad to have sacred things, folks. There are some things that connect you to God. Be proud of them. Don't run away from them. Don't be afraid of thinking, oh, that shouldn't happen. We need to get rid of that. That's not true. That's not good. That's not healthy.
That term sacred cow has been used in a 180 degree.
Okay, let's take down that slide. Just take the slide down. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of
It's
that.
had a very different connotation, and I think that may
Okay,
be
just take down the cow. There should be things in your church that are sacred. I was telling you about the church in Candler, a little town. That bluegrass music was sacred to them because it connected them to God, and the church finally figured out, it's not the organ here, it's the bluegrass. That is really feeding people. I don't like bluegrass, but it has nothing to do with me. It was sacred to that community. It met them with God. They came out refreshed and new people. That's what I'm talking about. It's important for a congregation to come in touch with what is sacred to you. Now, you may not all agree, but it isn't bad to have things that are sacred. You get what I'm saying? I'm not really yelling at you. This is just the way I talk when I'm passionate. I'm really not. I'm really not yelling at you. I want to free you to know that there are things that are sacred. Right? I mean, somebody said what was sacred to them was working with the homeless. And that was Linda, who does meals all the time. That's sacred to her. She doesn't want those meals messed with. And so as a pastor, if that's sacred to enough people, I as a pastor should not mess with that. Because that's what connects you to God and makes you who you are. That's what I need to find out, and that's what you need to know. Lavelle, is that clear as mud?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about, okay?
Well, when I had all my losses, we had Stephen ministers, which really helped me. Do we have that, Bobby?
No, you haven't had senior ministers in years. But I need the present. If we go to the past, then we're talking about things.
We had it now.
And that's the question that Cheryl was saying was challenging. Post-pandemic, there's not a whole lot of things going on. But when you whittle down, and maybe that makes it easier, Cheryl, because you just got what's left, what's sacred. Go ahead, Mary.
UMW.
Yeah, I told you, my first minister, when my tutelage made my mentor said, Ben, the answer you have at UMW is yes. He said that for him, that was sacred because it meant so much to him. But maybe for this church, it's UMW. That's what I'm talking about, okay? Because you want to keep those things. You want to honor those things. That's okay to honor those things. Because if it makes you joyful and it makes you connect with God, it's going to make other people coming in joyful. If you do things and you think, oh, do I have to do this again? Well, nobody's coming back because that's not even making you happy. It's not going to make them happy. You get it? And that's what you're trying to divide out.
Yeah.
All right? What is your sacred thing? Your wife is poking you. Your wife is 7 years is poking you. Okay, you have marriage is on. It's which is on it. Okay. All right.
Like in the crosses, one of them, you know, is, I mean, that's what it's all about. And we do have a cross, but you know, I think it's very important that we have that as a symbol.
You don't want the cross removed from the church. That's sacred to you.
Exactly.
Put it on. I would honor that. That's what I'm talking about. It's okay to have things that are sacred to you. That's what makes you. You got to connect with God. That's why you come here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to make those things even better because you do that. Those are the things you're going to do well. And we don't.
Yeah.
We want to just like if doing a community meal is. That's one of the things that I have really enjoyed here. Pre-pandemic, sitting down. One of the things you did here that was different from any church I've ever had was when you do a community meal, you sit down with everybody else and eat that meal together with people who are trashed and smelly and homeless. My past congregations, they were on the one side of the counter and they served everybody on the other side of the counter and we were serving. Well, you know, that's a little patriarchal, I think, even if you're a woman doing it. It's just kind of, you know. But that you all comfortably sit down and just eat together, well, that's an asset. That's a sacred thing. You don't want to get rid of that. You want to make it better. That's what we're after, okay? Okay.
Yeah.
What? Potluck should be sacred again. I really miss getting together.
Okay, we're going to talk about those things.
Well, there's a category for that. Just hold on to that. Yeah. Yeah.
This next category is going to be even harder. Elephant in the room. Elephant in the room. What issue? Now, when I raise my voice, folks, I'm not yelling at you. My father and mother did that. I just am. I'm an intense person.
I can hear my friend
Okay.
yell at us.
Yes.
I don't know what we do about this. Look at us, but the elephant in the room for me is the lack of children.
Yeah.
To carry on our mission and our purpose.
That's an elephant.
I mean, as we're dying off.
That's an elephant in the room. That's an elephant in the room. Or you could word this another way, Lavelle. You could say an elephant in the room. You could also say our aging congregations.
Yeah.
Right. Don't you think those go hand in hand?
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not reflecting on you, but in the past minister, we had like 20 children marching around
Yes.
Halloween, in their Halloween costumes, and it vitalizes the congregation.
Yes.
And James used to contribute, 3-4 kids. Now he's not here.
I was here this morning with,
No, I mean, he's not here with the kids usually.
He is.
This morning, every time he's here.
You're here today.
I know, but he's got another.
Okay, Mary, sit down when you talk, because that way everybody is sitting too, and we're not having people. Sit down when you dress. Yeah, I want you to sit down. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Huh? Go ahead. I just think it makes me more relaxed.
For me, the elephant in the room is the amount of stuff that we have lost, like choir. Bell choirs are coming back, but the bell choirs, loss of communication, we'd ask questions and wouldn't get answers. Loss of outside groups, we've lost the youth pastor. My covenant group dissolved because of other things going on. We've lost the Stevens
Just go down,
ministry,
keep
we've
writing
lost
down.
finances. You want me to just give you the list, Cindy?
No, can we just say, the loss of programs in the church?
Yeah.
Loss of programs.
Programs and finances.
And finances are important.
Yeah.
The financial need seems to be an elephant we don't want
And
to
I
talk
don't know
about.
if this is an elephant or a dinosaur, but I think that maybe there's a way to do some healing from those losses.
Okay.
And I don't know which
Some
category that
healing.
would be.
That would be at the end.
She said some healing.
That would be things to move forward with.
Yeah, post-pandemic,
Now, I
I
do want you
agree,
to
yeah.
know that we are struggling, but I do think you need to be aware that the congregation was, a lot of his salary, a lot of his budget was coming out of his assets.
We know that.
You couldn't continue that. You don't have much, and that's what we have to figure out in the months ahead. You're now 97% for the year on your budget for tithes, offerings, and rental. We have to figure out a way to do those things like Lavelle, you talked about, are most important, but do it in a way that's not going to pay much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big challenge, okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, for me, my elephant will disappear as soon as it's introduced to us. I'm so tired of hearing about the board. How many people are on the board? Who are they? Why don't they come and say, I am on the board, and introduce themselves and let us know who they are? You know, I get so tired of, well, you need to ask the board about that. The board is not a plank. The board is a...
I didn't realize that was happening. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do next week. I'll put a list of the board members out in front of the church. It's not a secret. And anybody is invited to board meetings.
Okay, well, yeah, it should be.
That was a part of what I meant by the loss of communication.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the board, I'll make sure a list goes out of who's on the board. That's not a secret. And anybody can come to board meetings. The board meetings by discipline are open to anyone. Anybody can come to a board meeting. And they are publicized. But Rod will put out a list of who's on the board.
I have one right here.
Yeah, we'll make a copy of it, put it out. It's not a
Thank you.
secret.
That's a big help.
Oh, sure.
Got rid of the elephant.
Okay. Yes.
So I had the expense of the large facility and how to continue to
Yes, and
keep
Linda,
this
do you want to say
church.
anything on that? The expense of the building. I think the building is an elephant in the room, yes.
And then also how to recruit the unchurched, not the duns and the nuns, but the unchurched folks. How to get more people in here.
Okay, that's two elephants. One is the expenses and upkeep of the building, and one is, I'm going to use a word that might frighten you, evangelism. All right? Is that okay to use that word?
What's that?
Yeah.
All right.
So it's not quite
Evangelism, yes. Evangelical, yeah.
Okay, evangelism. All right?
What did you say, Anton? Evangelism. No, I mean, what did she go into?
Evangelism.
No, she said
evangelical.
Okay, but evangelical. Evangelical? I think we need to figure out.
Well, it means good news. It means, right? What does it mean, James? Evangelical.
It's from the Evangelion, the good news. The gospel.
What?
It's from the Evangelion, the good news.
Yeah, that's what I just said. It means good news. Yeah, it means good news. Okay.
Wait. In terms of evangelism.
No. I don't want to get stuck on that word.
No, I'm just going to say, I think we need something that teaches us what it is that we're saying to be evangelical.
Okay, that's post-pandemic, okay?
Yeah.
That's
Right
some
now
of the
we're
things you
doing
want to do. Okay. All right. So what your elephants are in the room: a lack of children, aging congregation, losses of programs and finances and communication, expenses and upkeep of building, and evangelism. Yes, Lavelle.
I don't know what category I'm in, but I've had people look at our website and it's like antique back to 2019 or something. And if you have someone moving in the valley,
and looking for a Methodist church, and they go to the website, and
Okay.
the latest is.
Well, I agree with you there totally, but I don't want to get into right now all the activities and things we have to do. I don't want to do that. Because that is just going to give us a list of things that's going to make us manic that we have to take care of right away. We will get to that. And Lavelle, we're going to have to parse out what is most important and put priority on it, the whole group. But I don't want today to just be putting out sheets of everything that we need to do and then come out anxious because we have to take care of all these things. But yes, I totally agree with you on that, but that's not necessarily an elephant in the room. Elephant in the room, you do. So you're afraid to talk about the website. These are things that we're afraid to talk about. Are you afraid to talk about the website? Is there some reason you don't want to talk about the website because you're afraid to bring it up? Okay, that's what these categories are about. I'm really trying to keep you on track here. I know that there are a lot of things. Believe me, I have worked long hours since the pandemic to fill in the gaps. I don't have a staff. But that's not what we're doing right now. And I can't be sent out in 20 directions. I'm already the secretary. No, I'm being serious. And take care of a lot of building property issues. And so we're not going to just make a long list of things that we need to do, because that could go on. That said, Lavelle, I agree with you 100% that we need a website. But this question in here is, what are we afraid to talk about? Are you afraid to talk about your website?
No, but I.
Okay, then just leave it, then let it go. Just let it go, because I have to stay on task of what we're doing, or else we'll be here till 7. Okay? And then the next week, we'll have burned all our energy for next month, and you won't want to come back. Okay? All right, yes.
Basic elephant in the room is the fact that this building at one point was being considered to leave it and go on to something else.
And you think that's an elephant in the room, that at one point, people don't want to talk about how at one point they were talking about 7.
Right, and that got,
Okay, put relocation.
we're not discussing.
Put relocation. Okay, we're going to go on to the next thing. I just don't want you to confuse your categories.
Can I bring up one point to that comment?
Yeah.
About the,
Yeah.
just the idea that the church at one time, a big group study was done, and it was determined that probably this building should be sold and put a church out in another area outside of the downtown area.
Well, that is about whether or not you want to claim the neighborhood that you're presently in. Okay, that could be an elephant in the room. That people may not want to talk about whether or not they really want to be here. Maybe there are people here who really don't want to come to be here, but they're tied here because of the congregation. They want to be somewhere else. And during the 6-month process, you have to decide whether or not you really feel called to serve this neighborhood. Right? Let's go on to the next thing. Is that accurate?
Well, can I tell one random thing? I found a single letter signed by many members of that group committee, all by itself, in some papers that needed to be filed. I mean, it just was there, all by itself. But I find it so interesting that some of you were on there in that group.
Okay, that cannot be recovered from the past.
No.
But what we can talk about, what's people to talk about, is maybe you don't like this neighborhood anymore and you want to move, or maybe you want to claim it. And that's a huge issue.
It also ties into how much money we want to put into this. We've got electrical issues.
All right, that's a lot. We're going to go on to the next thing. Go on to the next thing. All right, what is extinct or needs to die in order to move forward?
Our music program.
You feel like our music program needs to die. So you would want to get rid of Zach and...
I'm not saying get rid, I'm saying it just needs the program. It's not good enough. And music is what we need for the church.
Okay, remember, you don't have a choir director.
I understand.
Okay.
Choir organist.
You want the music program here to die.
As it is, yes.
All right? The music program needs to die.
That's my role, that's mine.
Okay. You want different music program.
I agree. 2 years would have to go, I'm saying it needs to die.
All right. Okay, the music program needs to die. Okay, what else needs to die?
Well, I don't understand what she means it needs to
die,
Well,
the
I
current
think it's what's
musicians.
extinct or needs to die. I think it's
Changed.
Our music program is extinct if we want to draw people in this day and age.
Well, I think we're pretty
No, she's saying it needs to die. She
No,
wants
I'm
it
saying,
dead.
no, the question is, what is extinct or needs to die? I'm doing what is extinct. We are extinct in our music program.
Okay, what about the music that needs to die? What in particular?
I think she's talking about the first three words, what is extinct?
It's already gone.
Like you don't like the music they play, or you don't like the hymns? What is it you don't like?
I think the whole music program.
Disorganization.
No, well, organization, disorganization, same thing, but
Yeah.
the kind of music that we are using now is not the kind of music that the people that are not churched will come to listen to.
Okay.
And I thought we were supposed to get people in here that would enjoy their newfound faith.
Do you know what that music sounds like?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, we can turn it. No, because I have to tell you that since the pandemic that I've lost staff, really is difficult because I'm on my own here, flying solo, and picking out music and meeting with Zach and Jeff, each week, and trying to get them on board. And there's a wide spectrum of music, and sometimes I use Judy. So, but if you want the music program done, dead.
No, here, I think if I could help, I think what I'm hearing is that you feel like an inclusive music program that utilizes a lot of talent within the congregation, like a choir and the bell choir, is already gone. Not that she wants to kill it. So again, she's keying off the first things. What is already gone? An inclusive music program is gone. We have some music now that we don't want to get rid of necessarily, but
Is that correct? Or you want to get rid of
we just
music?
want it to be more inclusive again.
I'm saying, we do not, this is one thing that I did enjoy, and I thought it was a minority here, was one of our ministers who used up to date, not necessarily clear, church music, just regular modern music, and it all fit in with whatever sermon he had.
Now, I have to defend myself here.
And
The music, Bobby, that I pick out, you may not like it, but I really try to pick out music that goes along with my message.
That's good.
But I am just, but I do need to say that. I don't pick random music.
I'm not criticizing your choice of music. I'm
Okay.
saying the kind of music. I don't know how to say it.
You
The
want different
modern-
kind of music?
Modern music.
Okay.
Music that sounds like it was written in this century or this decade or something.
Okay.
Rather than music.
I am going to
that's
push
written
back
thousands of
again.
years.
I am going to push back again because you have both. The music that Jeff plays is as current music as you're going to get. I mean, it's like music that's written in 2021.
And I'm not criticizing.
He writes.
I'm criticizing the program. Well,
But now I do pick out hymns because there are many people who come to me and say that they want those hymns. And so I pick them out because that's what seems to be connecting them to God. Right? Yeah.
There's other people that it doesn't connect them to God at all.
And that's why we were trying to do some of the other music as
I
well.
said I want this to be extinct, not needs to die. This is extinct. Your
Okay.
music program is extinct. Look at the churches that are growing and listen to their music.
All right, music program. Okay, music program.
Old-time fiddlers, we used to have them.
Now, Bobby would not be for the old-time fiddler. You'll be totally against the old-time
We
fiddler.
have this down on the list.
That is not current music that is drawing big churches. Old-time fiddler music.
But it's lively,
What?
lively.
Like when the
No,
Samoans.
that's
not new stuff.
That's not new stuff. That's old-time fiddlers.
I know, but they play beautifully.
But that's not what I hear Bobby saying. Is that what you're saying?
You know, I know what I want to say. I'm not able to communicate it.
I understand you, Bobby.
What is she saying, James?
She's saying stylistically, we are becoming a enclave unto ourselves. We're not doing things that is invitational to the community.
Okay.
Right, like when the Samoans come in and sing, that's lively, it's fun.
Okay, so, yeah, just keep it up, okay? So just put more invitational music. All right, I'm going to clarify this or something. If that's what you want, I'm not your man. I don't know how to do that stuff. I feel like I'm good at preaching, pastoral care, administration of the church. I am not a music director. I'm doing my best to pick out the music that I can pick out, and sometimes I work with Cindy, and I work with Jeff and Zach, and then people come to me with music they like to sing. But that's not in my wheelhouse. You have to be aware of that. It's just not.
And I think we need to honor that because I believe our last pastor did not honor that fact. You have done a great deal. You are keeping us to our investments and the things that are here. You're not
Right, so
money outside.
that is just not in my, because I take it on very personally, but it's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, no.
And that would require either somebody to be paid or somebody to come forward who really knows how to do that stuff. Yeah, okay, just to be aware of that. But, I know you're not, but I just am telling you reality. That's just not in my wheelhouse. Now, I've had staff in churches that was in their wheelhouse and I just let them run with it. Because that's what they do well, music. Yeah, okay, all right. What else is extinct or needs to die? Yes?
Extinct is gathering, like potlucks or gatherings for meals.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure out how to do that going forward.
How to have fellowship meals.
Right.
How to do that going forward.
Right.
Because you feel like potlucks are done.
Right, the way we used to do it.
Yeah.
We have to serve
That's
food
only
safely.
because of COVID. I don't think that you're not saying they should go away, right?
No, I'm saying they're extinct right now because of COVID.
Okay.
So it had to be
reinvented.
Yeah, we have to reinvent how to
Okay,
fellowship.
James, you have something?
No, I was just saying they're at least endangered at the moment.
They are endangered at the moment. Okay, what else? What else needs to die? Scott?
Yeah, our resentment of the things that we've lost in our past, and focus more on the present and future moving forward.
I think you should. I think that's okay. Can I be dead honest with you? I think that's a lot of what is taking place here.
Yes.
Can I be real honest with you? Yeah. You were at a time in church that was much larger than you are now, and part of this 6-month process is actually figure out what you can actually handle.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because honestly, folks, I can't do any more. And I know you're not making it that way, but that's how I take it, because I'm an only paid person. But say that again. Say what you just said.
Okay, so let go of our resentment of the things that we've lost in the past and focus on the present moving forward.
Let go of the resentment of things you have lost in the past. Because I'm hearing things brought up that aren't even taking place now.
Mm-hmm.
That you're angry over. And I'm thinking, whoa, guys, that's not even happening now. That's gone. So resentment of the past. And we can actually do that here.
Mm-hmm.
We can go about a way of helping people, whatever side you are on, or if you're on a side, of letting go of the resentment of the past and resentments of each other.
Right.
Okay?
And another elephant in the room.
Because, wait, one more thing. It was a long time ago, that paper. I read that paper, that you decided not to move. You're still hanging on to that resentment. That was a long time ago. Those resentments got to be let go of. Otherwise, you don't have a future.
I think you need to make sure that those resentments are correctly identified.
Okay, now.
Because what that paper said was we were going to move forward. Then a new pastor arrived, and that paper disappeared. And he said, we are not going to discuss this again, we're not going to do it. So you need to look at.
Right. But you have to let go of that past. Because honestly, folks, I don't think you're any longer strong enough to move to a new location.
No.
No.
You're not. You can't do that. No. You can do that when you have 200, 300, 400 people coming here. If you move now, you're only going to get 50% of what you've got left to move with you, and the other 50% are going to stay.
and they're gonna stay in this community. I think it's too late for that, unless you want to take off and birth a new Methodist church as a separate group. Maybe that's what you want to do.
I think a lot of them left.
So,
Yeah, we've already lost.
some of those things are gone, okay? But I think that's important. The way you worded it, Scott, was perfect. Right? I'm not going to keep us here longer than we're supposed to.
Yeah, I could elaborate, but we definitely need to move forward.
What's the next one? Okay, one of the good things about me being here is, let me tell you, I understand what you're talking about. Because I was thrown out of an annual conference. And if there's anybody who has resentment struggles, it's me. So I'm not judging you on that stuff. I know it's difficult, no matter where you're at on this issue. Okay? I get it. I get it. Been there with the church. All right. What distractions are keeping us from our task? I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, that same.
COVID. Yeah, I think it's the same thing. You think an aging congregation is distracting you?
We can't begin to do what we used to do for our church. And so we're not doing it.
Maybe that's a frustration.
Well, if there's a task that needs to be done,
Distracting.
Yeah.
No, she's right, it does keep us from our tasks.
Okay, all right, good, Bobby. I just like to give Bobby a hard time. She's exactly as old as my mother would be if she were still alive.
Somebody's saying something bad.
Okay, all right. Okay, I think, Bobby, you're exactly right. I think Lauren's correct. That is distracting. Okay. All right.
Lack of money.
Yeah, money for operations.
Money, finance.
You think money is a distraction? Okay.
Well, lack of money. And can I just quickly, remember Harry, he was saying so many congregations cannot afford the building they're in.
Yes.
They're renting a theater or something and continuing there. Can we continue to afford this building?
That's an elephant in the room, and that's something that says.
I know, I tried to say it.
You did say it, and you said it well. You said it well again, and I agree with you. And I think that's something in the next 6 months, Lavelle, you're exactly right, that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
We need to make a decision on it.
Maybe you need to.
Right now, we're making it because we're renting half the building. Because we can't leave the building empty, we can't afford it, so we're renting the second floor to a music school, and then we let the basement for that reason. Yes?
Well, there's like a church that just has a tent, but maybe like.
Okay, we're getting into ideas. I don't want to do that. We got 6 months for that. We
No,
only
I
got 5
know,
more minutes.
but
Yes.
maybe.
I think, for me, and I'm not a member of the church, but I was raised in a Methodist church and new to the area, but it's the sadness for me, is a distraction.
The sadness.
It's about loss and sadness.
It's about loss and sadness. I think you're exactly right.
And so that
Yes.
pulls us.
We're on squirrel, right?
We're on squirrels.
Okay, what about the Bible study?
You think that's a distraction?
Well, squirrel, yeah, not having a Bible study.
Not having a book study, not having.
All right.
Things.
Well, right now we're not having one because we're doing this. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I get it. All right. Okay, next one. We gotta get moving back here.
Yeah,
Because we got 6 months to do this. We don't need to bring it all up today. Okay? So we're not being serious. This is just a shell. Okay?
Yeah.
Naming and embracing our epic failures. What were your epic failures? Now, I want to put a parameter. I don't want your epic failures to be about another pastor right now. I want your epic failures to be about yourselves and about maybe a program. All right? Okay? What? What are your epic failures? Do you have any epic failures? Yes?
Safety. There's been an issue with safety. Some people have stayed away because we are a downtown church now. We've locked the church, and we've done some things, but safety has been a lot.
Do you think that's an epic failure? Epic
probably,
failures are things, programs, or events you've had in
probably
the past,
more
and they
the
were a
squirrel.
flop.
It's probably more of squirrels.
Yeah, probably more of a squirrel. I think that's more of a squirrel.
Yeah.
Epic failures are things you have done, and you thought, we didn't do that very well. That's not our calling. We stunk at that. Right.
Conference came in and did the Healthy Vital Church Initiative, and from my perspective afterwards, first of all, they didn't give us what we voted on, to me, it was a joke.
Okay.
Healthy Vital Church Initiative.
Conference programs.
It wasn't just us, but
Right.
brought in for us.
Do you have a program that you did or a ministry and you thought we shouldn't be doing that? That's not our role. That's an epic failure. Something you did that I've had congregations that did activities and they learned from it. That's not our calling. We shouldn't do that again, and we learn from it.
Oh, okay.
You get what I'm talking about? Churches
Yeah.
do it all the time. They do things and they didn't do it well. They put a lot of money into it. I have started a few extra worship services where we were awful. We had to finally cancel it. We were spending too much money. It was like a Friday night service I one time did. That was going to be like a new age, well, not new age, just a different kind of thing. It just, we weren't good at it. And we had to stop it and let another church in the neighborhood do it. We just were bad at it. Which is not something we did with. That's what I'm talking about. It's not that it wasn't a good thing. We just couldn't do it. We weren't good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Or not that it needed to get done in that community. We couldn't do this. We were terrible. What?
Intermission.
What?
Intermission.
Intermission.
A long pause in the middle of a church to have coffee.
Oh, yeah, that was.
Yeah, I knew that you felt that way, and I respect that. There are people who here who really liked it as well. So it was an epic failure for you.
For me?
For you.
What was?
But it wasn't for you. Right. Okay, look, we're gonna go on to the next thing, because we gotta leave. I really want, because you're not gonna want to come back if I keep you here for too long. I mean, you're not.
Yeah.
You want to come back, you want to be ready to come back to actually tackle some of these things. You're not gonna do it. All right, next thing, next slide. New things we are hoping for post-pandemic in your church.
Younger families.
Okay.
No?
Yeah, you're hoping for younger families, but that's kind of
how to do it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What I want more about, I mean, we all want younger families, but, I mean, I get what you're getting at, but, how do I say it?
Old culture.
Like-
I mean-
Bringing in new culture. I don't know.
I mean, bring in the, yeah. Okay, you can put new families, but I think that, I get what you're saying, and I probably say too, but I'm looking for things that you would actually do to bring in new families.
Yeah, so narrowing it down a little bit,
Remember
yeah.
the first part of the program where I was
Yeah.
talking about post-Christendom? You can't expect people just to walk through your doors.
Well, I
Yeah.
think one thing is you could have more things at night, because I can't come to anything. It's all in daytime.
Okay, nighttime activities.
Okay.
We're gonna really narrow this down, because we go on forever and have a wish list, and I don't want to do a wish list. What?
Christian education.
Christian educator?
Education.
Christian education.
Which could be multiple Bible studies
Yeah, okay.
for different.
Remember who you are now. All right? I have had Bible studies since I've been here. I had a short, actually just a brief period. We do them on Skype, we did them in person. We have had Bible studies.
Right.
Remember who you are. I was lucky if I got 5 or 6 people at those Bible studies. Right? Right? So let's just not make lists of things.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
And if you were in a music program?
A creative music program, okay? Nice program, creative music program. Because what happens is you make this long list. 6 months later, you don't accomplish maybe one of them, and you get discouraged.
True.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I've done this, where you put up the wallpaper everywhere with all these things, and you think, and some of them oppose one another, you know? So that's why we're going to talk about our DNA, especially when it comes to this music. You got to come together on the music, folks, because you're all over the board on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So we as a group, that's why it takes a congregation. I'm not going to answer that question for you. Who are you? Who are you reaching? Not who you think you should reach. Who are you and who could you reach? You get the difference there?
Mm-hmm.
You get the difference? And what do you actually have the capacity for?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? All right. I think that's enough. I think we got a lot to do with, right? But I knew, I was up last night thinking about this. It was been on my mind. It really has been. It has been on my mind. Okay, all right. Let's go to the next slide. We're going to do that litany, then we're going to go. Okay, we didn't get to that, but that's our goal. Look at that goal. Before we talk about activities and 100 things you want to do, like a Christmas day with all your packages, we don't answer that question, folks, until we figure out who we are as a church. And you are a bit confused. Because I think you just are. I don't want to be hard on you. I love you. I think you're a wonderful group of people. But who are we as a church? What is unique to our DNA? That's why I was asking you about what is sacred. What do you do well? Do that. And what is our mission? I have not found an updated mission statement in this church. Am I missing it somewhere?
No.
What is the mission of this time and place? Who are we as a church? What is unique to our DNA? What is our mission? That's the question we've got to answer before you make a laundry list. And that's what I was trying to get at with the animal stuff. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Not who you think you should be. I think for years I should have been straight. I would have loved to have been straight. But I'm not. And I lost my job over it. And my family is 3,000 miles away.
Right.
Who are we as a church? Be proud of that. What is unique to your DNA here? Embrace it. And that's what then from that, you can decide what you need to do as a people. Not all the stuff that you think you should be doing. Right? No shoulds here. No shoulds. Okay. And now I need to shut up. All right. Next slide. Just keep going on. Just keep going. I took a pretty picture of the sanctuary because I felt like doing it. Go on to the next one. Go on to the next one. Go on to the next one. We don't have time for any of that. Closing worship. We're just going to read this litany. Go on to the next one. That's the boat. We already talked about that. Go on to the next one. Go to the next one. We're going to land. Okay, now, let's do the song together and go. Oh, come, let us sing to the Creator of the cosmos.
Let us be make a joyful noise to joy.
For the beloved is infinite, the breathing life of all.
The depths of the earth belong to love, the height of the mountains as well.
We are blessed to be invited to friendship.
As companions along the way.
Okay, you are a wonderful group of people. I'm going to take Kath home. Then I'm going to go to the grocery store because I'm taking my sister to the Redwoods. My sister who's never been west of the Mississippi River, and she's so overwhelmed by the landscape. So wait till I take her to the Redwoods.
Ooh, yeah.